It didn't start as a media empire. It started as a simple idea. Back in late 2016, Mike and Erin Galloway quietly launched Our Wyoming Life from their cattle ranch near Gillette, Wyoming. No flashy intro, no dramatic music, just real ranch work, the kind most people never get to see. They didn't sugarcoat anything. Viewers watched calves being born in freezing temperatures. They saw the stress of hay shortages. They heard honest breakdowns of what equipment cost and how tight ranch margins could be. That transparency was rare and people noticed. The channel grew faster than anyone expected. Subscribers weren't just watching for entertainment, they were learning how modern ranching actually works. Mike explained the business side in plain terms. Erin brought warmth and balance to the chaos of daily ranch life. Together, they made agriculture feel personal, and that authenticity built trust. Within a few years, Our Wyoming Life became one of the most recognized ranch channels on YouTube. Millions of views, a loyal audience, a brand that represented rural America to people who had never stepped foot on a ranch. But rapid growth brings pressure, because once your everyday life becomes content, every challenge becomes public. And what started as a simple window into Wyoming ranching was about to face changes no one saw coming. Success on YouTube looks exciting from the outside, but behind the scenes, it's a grind most people never see. As Our Wyoming Life grew, so did the expectations. Uploading once in a while wasn't enough anymore. The algorithm rewards consistency. Viewers expect updates, sponsors want performance, and ranch work doesn't pause just because a camera is rolling. Cattle still need feeding at sunrise, equipment still breaks at the worst possible moment. Wyoming winters don't care about upload schedules. Filming all of that adds another layer of pressure. It's not just doing the work, it's setting up cameras in the middle of it, explaining financial decisions clearly, editing for hours after a full day outside, responding to thousands of comments, managing merchandise, handling partnerships. What looked like just ranch life had quietly turned into 2 full-time jobs, and the stakes were high. Ranching is already a business with razor-thin margins. Feed prices fluctuate, cattle markets swing up and down, fuel costs spike. A bad season can erase months of planning. That reality was something Mike often explained openly on the channel, and it's part of what built their credibility. But once income is tied to views, another variable enters the equation. YouTube itself. Algorithms change. Ad revenue shifts. What worked one year doesn't always work the next. Creators across the platform have talked about unpredictable revenue swings, and agricultural content isn't immune to that. Now, imagine juggling that uncertainty while managing livestock, land, and real financial risk. That kind of pressure doesn't always show up on camera. To viewers, it might look like a normal vlog, but behind every upload is scheduling, editing, strategy, and the constant awareness that thousands and sometimes millions are watching and forming opinions. And opinions can be loud. As the channel became bigger, so did the scrutiny. Every decision was analyzed, every change noticed, every absence questioned. And when small shifts started happening, a missed upload here, a change in tone there, people didn't just observe. They started asking questions because something felt different, and the speculation was only beginning. Then the comments started changing. At first, it was subtle, a few viewers asking why uploads felt less frequent, others wondering why the energy seemed different. Nothing dramatic, just curiosity. But on YouTube, curiosity spreads fast. When a channel builds its identity around consistency and openness, even small shifts stand out, and longtime followers of Our Wyoming Life notice everything. A missed upload isn't just a missed upload, it becomes a question. Is something wrong? Speculation began popping up across comment sections and forums. Some wondered if ranch finances were tightening. Others guessed YouTube revenue might be fluctuating. A few even asked if the ranch itself was at risk. There was no confirmed crisis, no dramatic announcement, just a shift that people could feel but couldn't quite explain. And when creators live so publicly, silence can feel louder than words. Part of what made the channel successful was transparency. Mike had built a reputation for breaking down real numbers, cattle prices, equipment costs, operating expenses. That honesty made viewers feel included in the business side of ranching. So when the tone evolved and content direction began to adjust, some viewers interpreted it as a warning sign. But here's the reality. Growing a YouTube brand over several years naturally changes things. Life changes, priorities shift, creative direction evolves. That doesn't automatically mean collapse. Still, the internet doesn't usually wait for context. A single rumor can snowball. A casual comment can turn into a narrative. And once that narrative takes hold, it's hard to control. At the same time, another development quietly unfolded. Mike began putting more focus into a separate project beyond the ranch, a channel centered more around personal projects, equipment, and experiences outside the daily structure of the main ranch channel. To some viewers, that move raised even more questions. Was this diversification a backup plan, a sign of something bigger happening behind the scenes? No explosive statement confirmed anything dramatic, but change was clearly underway, and what happened next would shift the channel in a way no one expected. Then came the moment that changed everything. After years of building the brand together, Mike and Erin's relationship shifted, and eventually, news surfaced that they were no longer together. The couple who had filmed side by side, worked cattle shoulder to shoulder, and built one of YouTube's most recognized ranch channels had quietly reached a turning point. For viewers, it felt sudden, but for the people living it, it was deeply personal. In 2024, reports confirmed that Erin would be taking over Our Wyoming Life moving forward. Mike began focusing more on his separate platform, Beyond the Ranch. The split wasn't framed as scandal. There were no explosive accusations or public fights. Just a clear shift in direction, and that shift explained a lot. The subtle tone changes, the evolving upload schedule, the feeling longtime viewers couldn't quite put their finger on. It wasn't financial collapse. It wasn't the ranch failing overnight. It was something far more human. Life changed. For years, the channel had thrived on partnership. The balance between Mike's business-focused explanations and Erin's grounded presence gave the content warmth and relatability. When that dynamic changed, the channel naturally changed too, and audiences always feel that. Transitions like this are complicated. Personal relationships, business decisions, land ownership, branding, they all overlap. When your marriage is intertwined with your company and your public identity, separating those pieces isn't simple. Yet despite the upheaval, the ranch didn't disappear. The brand didn't shut down, the cameras didn't go dark. Instead, the story evolved. Erin stepped into a more visible leadership role on the main channel, while Mike carved out his own space with projects that felt more independent. It wasn't the end people had speculated about, it was a restructuring. But even when change is handled respectfully, it still leaves questions in its wake. Because viewers weren't just watching ranch content, they were watching a family. And now, everything felt different. Change doesn't just affect a relationship. It reshapes everything around it. When Erin stepped forward to lead Our Wyoming Life, she wasn't just continuing uploads. She was redefining what the channel would become. For years, viewers had associated the brand with both Mike and Erin working side by side. Their dynamic felt familiar, predictable, balanced. Now that balance was different, and longtime followers could feel it immediately. Some embraced the shift, others weren't sure what to think. That's the reality of building a brand around your real life. When your personal world changes, the audience experiences it too. Erin began sharing more of her own voice, more of her own perspective. The tone gradually leaned into independence, resilience, and rebuilding. It wasn't loud or dramatic, it was steady, and that steadiness mattered. Meanwhile, Mike continued creating content on Beyond the Ranch, focusing on projects, equipment, and a different kind of storytelling. The separation between the two platforms became clearer over time. This wasn't chaos. It was two people untangling a shared business in front of hundreds of thousands of viewers. That kind of transition isn't simple behind the scenes. There are logistics, branding decisions, audience expectations, and the emotional weight of knowing that every move will be analyzed online. Yet neither channel disappeared. There was no dramatic goodbye, no sudden vanishing act. Instead, there was adaptation. Uploads found a new rhythm. The ranch continued operating. Calving season still came. Equipment still needed fixing. Wyoming weather still did what it always does. Life kept moving. And that may have been the most unexpected part of all, because the internet loves dramatic endings. It looks for collapses, scandals, explosive revelations. But sometimes the real story is quieter. Sometimes it's about endurance. And just when viewers thought they understood where things were heading, the next chapter proved that this story wasn't over. It was simply entering a new phase. What surprised people most wasn't the split. It was the fact that the ranch kept going. After all the speculation, the whispered theories, and the dramatic predictions in comment sections, Our Wyoming Life didn't collapse. The land wasn't suddenly abandoned. The gates didn't close. Work continued. Cattle still needed care. Fences still needed repair. Seasons still changed on schedule. Ranch life doesn't pause for personal transitions. And that reality became clear quickly. But something deeper had shifted. The channel's identity was no longer built around a couple sharing the same daily routine. It was evolving into something more individual. Erin's presence felt more centered, her perspective more defined, the storytelling slightly more reflective. And for some viewers, that change felt unfamiliar. Audience reactions were mixed. Loyal supporters stayed, others drifted away. That's the risk of transformation in public. You can't control how everyone responds. At the same time, Mike's work on Beyond the Ranch carved out its own space. It wasn't a direct replacement. It wasn't a dramatic rivalry. It was simply different. Two creators, two directions, one shared history, and that clarity slowly replaced the rumors. Because the dramatic theories, financial ruin, secret crises, total shutdown, never materialized. There was no explosive confession, no sudden disappearance. What happened was quieter. Two people adjusted their lives. A business structure shifted. A brand adapted in real time. That's not the kind of story the internet usually amplifies. It's less sensational, less chaotic, but far more real. And maybe that's why it caught so many viewers off guard. We're used to watching public stories end in flames. Instead, this one transitioned through change. The ranch didn't fail. It evolved, and in doing so, it revealed something most people don't expect from creators online. That sometimes the biggest plot twist isn't collapse, it's resilience. And that realization reframes everything that came before. Today, the story looks very different than it did a few years ago, but it's still being written. Our Wyoming life didn't vanish. It didn't implode under scandal or quietly fade into obscurity. Instead, it settled into a new identity, one shaped by change rather than defined by it. Erin continues to document ranch life, but the tone carries more independence now. There's a sense of rebuilding, of redefining what the channel represents. It's less about a shared journey and more about personal strength and forward motion. And that shift feels intentional. Longtime viewers who stayed have watched that transformation unfold in real time. Not perfectly, not dramatically, just honestly. Meanwhile, Beyond the Ranch stands as proof that the story didn't split into silence. It split into separate paths. Mike's content focuses on different projects, different pacing, different priorities. It's no longer the same dynamic, but it's still connected to the roots that built the original audience. Two platforms, two voices, one shared foundation. Looking back, the biggest surprise isn't that things changed. It's how grounded the transition remained. There were no messy public battles, no viral exposés, no chaotic breakdown videos, just gradual evolution. And that may be why so many viewers struggled to process it at first. The internet expects spectacle, but real life rarely delivers spectacle on command. What happened to Our Wyoming Life wasn't a collapse. It was a separation handled in the open, with thousands of people watching. And that kind of transparency is uncomfortable. It forces viewers to confront something we don't often think about. Creators aren't characters. They're people whose lives continue whether the camera's on or not. The ranch still stands. The work still happens. The brand still exists. But the chapter that made it famous has closed. And what comes next won't look like the past. It will look like whatever they choose to build from here. So, what really happened to Our Wyoming Life? It didn't crash. It didn't burn down in scandal. And it didn't secretly disappear. It changed. What viewers witnessed wasn't financial ruin or some hidden crisis waiting to be exposed. It was something far more human. A relationship ending, a business restructuring, and two people choosing different paths while still living under the same wide Wyoming sky. For years, the channel represented partnership, hard work, shared goals. And when that foundation shifted, the brand had to shift with it. That's the part the internet rarely prepares us for. We grow attached to online stories as if they're scripted series. We expect clean endings or dramatic twists, but real life doesn't follow an algorithm. Sometimes it just evolves. Our Wyoming life continues forward in a new form. Beyond the Ranch moves in its own direction. The ranch still operates. The seasons still change. The work never stopped. What changed was the dynamic, and that was enough to spark rumors, questions, and endless speculation. But in the end, the truth is simpler than the theories. It wasn't the end of the ranch. It was the end of one chapter. And maybe the real story isn't about what happened. It's about what happens next.